Boo. They do it to themselves.
I've also become an Orioles fan, by the way, Elizabeth. They're maybe the World Series favorite, so there we go.
All right, well, it's your turn to take it over. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. Have a happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day to my dad, too. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome to the Hill here on NewsNation. Tonight, a major ruling. The Trump and Biden administrations wanted bans on bump stocks, but tonight, the Supreme Court has said that cannot happen, at least for now. The Texas gun store owner who just won his case at the high court joins us in moments here on the Hill. Elsewhere, the president with the Pope, why they're talking about artificial intelligence. Donald Trump with Logan Paul, engaging on the exact same controversial topic. Plus, Milwaukee's top leader joins us here on the Hill tonight. His reaction to having his city described as horrible. Also this evening, new numbers showing older voters might be moving in a different political direction. And is it a told you so moment? Why a new study says men's brains change when their name suddenly becomes Dad. Come on in. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. And welcome to Washington this evening. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Tonight, a big and controversial win for gun store owners, at least for the moment. The Supreme Court voting down ideological lines today that government agencies cannot ban bump stocks. Rather, the justices ruled it is up to Congress to potentially enshrine that into law. Now, the case was brought by a Texas gun store owner after the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in Donald Trump's administration banned bump stocks, which help semi-automatic guns fire more rapidly. Now, it was a response to that horrifying shooting in 2017 in Las Vegas, in which a gunman used a bump stock to fire more than 1,000 rounds on innocent concert goers. 58 people were killed, more than 400 wounded. In moments here on the Hill, we will speak with Michael Cargill, the Texas gun store owner who won at the Supreme Court today, along with his attorney. But first, to our Kelly Meyer, who is live in Washington with today's political fallout. Kelly?
Yeah, and Blake, it's interesting because, as you said, this is something the Biden administration and the Trump administration initially agreed on. Trump had banned bump stocks during his administration after the 2017 Las Vegas mass shooting, still the deadliest mass shooting in our nation's history. But now today, the Trump campaign didn't mention that in their statement at all, only saying the court has spoken and their decision should be respected, saying, quote, President Trump has been and always will be a fierce defender of American Second Amendment rights, and he is proud to be endorsed by the NRA. The Biden campaign slamming the ruling today, saying, quote, weapons of war have no place on the streets of America, but Trump's Supreme Court justices have decided the gun lobby is more important than the safety of our kids and our communities. All of this just adding more fuel to what could come up at the debate now less than 2 weeks away. Blake.
Kelly Meyer, live for us in Washington. Kelly, thank you. Joining us now is the Austin, Texas gun shop owner who just beat the ATF in the Supreme Court. His attorney is Mark Chenoweth. Mark, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. I believe we were supposed to speak with your client. If he gets to us here live in a moment, we'll hear from him as well. But can you explain to us why this case was brought?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the ATF doesn't have the power to ban weapons. Congress has never given them that power. And so when ATF issued this rule, by the way, after looking at the question of whether bump stocks were machine guns in the Bush administration and the Obama administration and the early Trump administration, all three had agreed that they are not machine guns. And so when ATF changed course after a decade after the shooting in Las Vegas, it didn't have the power to do that. Congress needed to be the one to change the law or write that sort of a rule, not ATF. So that's why we brought the lawsuit.
82% of the country disagreed with you, Mark, that bump stocks should be banned. There was a shooting, 1,000 rounds, 58 people killed, hundreds wounded. Why is 4/5 of the country wrong?
Well, I think we could also get 80% of the country to agree that federal bureaucrats shouldn't be able to retroactively criminalize the behavior of law-abiding Americans. And that's what ATF was trying to do here. We don't want to live in a country.
But what about the bump stocks, Mark? Because when it was asked after this horrifying incident, this was left, this was right, this was middle.
Sure, but it doesn't change the law because a device is popular or unpopular. Now, that's a very good reason why Congress might have had the votes to ban bump stocks. I would think if 80% of the people agreed to something, that you could get Congress to go along with a ban. But that doesn't empower the ATF to do something that it doesn't have the power to do. Writing criminal laws is the job of Congress. It's not the job of the ATF or any other federal agency.
You argued before the Supreme Court, sir. They went directly down ideological lines. Why do you think that was the case?
Well, we won 13-3 at the Fifth Circuit in a bipartisan fashion. So there have been judges appointed by Democrat presidents who have agreed with us on this issue. That didn't happen at the Supreme Court, as you point out, but it's a statutory interpretation question. And, there are two questions in front of the court, essentially, or two aspects of the definition of a machine gun. One is whether a gun fires more than one bullet with a single function of the trigger. And the court decided today that bump stocks don't do that because they don't. You have to pull the trigger every time to get an additional bullet fired from the gun. And the other question is it automatic? And the court said, no, it's not automatic because it's unlike a machine where if you hold down on the trigger, it keeps firing. With a bump stock, you have to continue to have manual inputs to the front end of the weapon in order to have additional shots fired.
I hear you there, but you know this, Mark. This was Donald Trump's administration who wanted this. This was Donald Trump's attorney general who went forward with this. This was Donald Trump's ATF who went forward with this. Did Donald Trump get this wrong?
Well, and that's why I've told people from the beginning the New Civil Liberties Alliance is a nonpartisan organization. We don't care if it's the Biden administration or the Trump administration or the next administration.
So you think Trump got it wrong?
I think that the ATF got it wrong. I think that the ATF doesn't have the power to criminalize weapons like this, and that both under the last administration and the current administration, ATF continued to defend this unlawful regulation. And so the New Civil Liberties Alliance had to be there to make sure that that couldn't happen.
I didn't see Trump in his statement today mention anything about the ATF. He let you down there?
Yeah. I haven't seen his statement, so I don't know what he said today, but I think that the Supreme Court's opinion speaks for itself, that the ATF regulation was unlawful. And as a result of that regulation, some 500,000 Americans turned in bump stocks to the ATF, either destroyed them themselves or turned them in. And you know what the problem with that is? Okay. ATF has now been found to have an unlawful regulation. And because ATF behaved that way, the next time ATF puts out a regulation, they're probably not going to get the same kind of voluntary compliance that they got this time around. ATF really needs to stick within its constitutional lane and do the kinds of things that Congress has given it authority to do, and not do the kind of things that Congress has not given it authority to do.
Mark Chenoweth, who won before the Supreme Court again today. Apologies to our audience, as we believed that we were speaking as well with Mark Cargill, the Texas gun store owner. But Mark, we thank you for your time, and thanks for being with us here on The Hill.
Glad to be with you.
Chris Steyerwalt, host of The Hill Sunday, joining us here on The Hill, along with Janae Wortel, former senior advisor for the Georgia special election runoff, T.W. Reedy, former communications aide to Senator Graham and Mike Pompeo. All right, so we just heard from the attorney there who won before the Supreme Court, and good on him for making his argument and winning. Trump's in a pickle here, though, is he not? Because this was his administration who backed this, who put this forward, who signed off on this after Las Vegas. And you heard Kelly Meyer in sort of the statement that they put out today. There was a little bit of a fine line for them to walk there.
Are you suggesting that the campaign of Donald Trump would tolerate any sort of intellectual incoherence? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Look, Republican voters are not going to punish Donald Trump for this.
You don't think so?
No, he's going to take the win. And say that this is what's the Groucho Marx line? These are my positions. If you don't like them, we have others. He'll take the win on this, and his voters Okay, so this is like the Israel issue for Democrats. Joe Biden's voters are mad at Joe Biden because of Israel. They don't like what he's doing. As they get closer to November, Joe Biden will say, you like the other guy? You like the other guy? If you're a Second Amendment voter, if you're a gun rights voter, you're not going to vote for Joe Biden under any circumstance. You're going to come back and vote for Donald Trump, whatever he did.
So at the debate, am I hearing Joe Biden look at Donald Trump and say, yes or no, bump stocks, ban them?
Well, I think there's no question that we should be banning bump stocks. And I think that the Biden campaign is going to take advantage of this opportunity to say, listen, like, bump stocks should be banned. This is a common sense step in gun safety. We can do this. We should do this. Bump stocks should be banned. So I think that the conversation, he's definitely going to take advantage of that to really illustrate his point that, like, we can make the switch to common sense gun safety, but we have to have, you know, a court that is not so conservative leaning that they put the interest of the American people first.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. This is the least surprising thing ever that Donald Trump changes his opinion on matters like this. But at the end of it, it's very perplexing to me. Because is it a weapon or is it accessory to the weapon? And that goes into a whole legalese thing that is a little bit heady. But at the underpinning of it all is pass a law. Like, we talk about gun safety all the time. Congress is very fractured, on a razor's edge. It's really hard to get it done. But this issue, if you extrapolate it out to all these other social issues that are happening, that we're upset about the legal system for not doing enough, the fact of the matter is Congress needs to do its job and pass laws. And that's the way to settle these conversations once and for all.
That's not happening.
I know. But the idea is we get so ticked off at bureaucracies or the judicial system for changing precedent and what have you. Pass laws.
Look, this is something that the Trump administrations and the Biden administrations agreed on, so I wonder, Chris, where this goes from here.
This goes nowhere. And the Senate, by the way, so if you're a Democrat, every day that you can talk about the Supreme Court is a good day. Whether it's Sam Alito's vexillology, his flying of flags, or whether it is whatever it is. If you're a Democrat, you want the Supreme Court of the United States to be front and center every day, because just as it worked for Republicans in 2016, and with the vacancy on the Supreme Court, it will work for Democrats this time to get disaffected Democrats who don't like Joe Biden to say, I got to vote for him because we need the appointments on to change.
By the way, to your point, to my inbox like 15 minutes ago was a statement from the Biden campaign on what they say is a list of possible Supreme Court justices for Donald Trump. He wrote it successfully in 2016.
I assume on the list it's like Trump wants Godzilla and the Hamburger.
I'm not sure they went there, but you see the route that they're starting to go, to your point. All right, coming up here on the Hill over the next 47 minutes or so, the president joins the Pope while the former president meets Logan Paul. Also tonight, the Milwaukee County executive is talking to us here on the Hill. Donald Trump yesterday called that city horrible. So what do the numbers show? We'll ask that area's top leader what is going on in Milwaukee, and you're going to be breaking down later in the show some interesting numbers as it relates to the oldest voters. I guess that's the way to put it. The oldest voters in this country. There's a little bit of a shift coming on.
Yeah, and by the way, they're very reliable voters. One of the reasons that people care so much is that older voters vote with such high frequency, so what they do matters a lot.
All right, Steyerwalt breaks down later in the show. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Tonight, there is fresh fallout from Donald Trump's comments about Milwaukee, side of the upcoming Republican National Convention. In a closed-door meeting with Republican lawmakers here in Washington on Thursday, Trump described Milwaukee as, quote-unquote, horrible. Now, after that was reported, Trump later publicly said that he was specifically talking about crime in that city. Today, the Democratic National Committee jumped all over it, saying it is, quote, rolling out new billboards around Milwaukee to make sure Wisconsinites know how Trump feels about them. You see one of them there. They have put 10, or at least rolling out 10 of them. President Biden's campaign, by the way, now also selling merchandise with the theme that Milwaukee is not a horrible city. David Crowley is the Milwaukee County executive and joins us here on the Hill. David, thank you for your time. Appreciate it, sir. You got the big job there in that area. I wonder what you made of it when you first saw the headline and saw the news.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. But when I first heard the news of the former president call us a horrible city, I think it was almost like a badge of honor, because personally, I think he has bad taste. But it clearly let me know that he doesn't understand what Milwaukee means, not just to the state of Wisconsin, but this entire region. But we know that so many Republicans are going to be coming here for the Republican National Convention. And we've had national experts really talking about what we have to offer and us being a vacation destination. And not too long ago, we just had Top Chef here really showcasing everything that we have to our beautiful lakefront, to our people. And so for me, those comments really don't mean anything because we know that Donald Trump will not be winning Milwaukee County this upcoming November.
I hear you selling your city, David, and good on you for doing it, right? As you should. But we looked into the numbers here, and let me just walk you through some of them, because the New York Times has reported about roughly $1 billion that has been given to Milwaukee in the recent years because of certain government programs. For example, the American Rescue Plan, $183 million. The Infrastructure Act, more than $550 million. The Inflation Reduction Act, $237 million. So that's some of the money that's come into Milwaukee. But when you look at crime, for example, because that's what Donald Trump says he was talking about, the number of homicides have come down, but carjackings and robberies are up. When you look at the economics, according to government figures, unemployment is up this year compared to 2023, and the average wage is below where the average wage is nationally. So I hear you say, come to Milwaukee, sir, but it feels like, does it not, that the area needs some help and needs some improving?
Well, I think no matter what community you go to all across this country, every community has its level of challenges. And as you reported, many of our crime statistics have been really coming down, and we are becoming a much thriving community. And a lot of this has been because of our partnership with the Biden-Harris administration. We've seen millions of dollars coming into our community. We're seeing the rise of affordable housing. We're putting people to work with the infrastructure dollars that we're receiving. And this provides even greater opportunities to make sure that our community, our residents, are in a great position to receive many of these jobs. But what I will tell you again, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, with all that money coming in from Washington, essentially, and from this administration, then why are we seeing some level of crime increase and unemployment tick up?
Well, I think that we can't pinpoint just one thing, right? I think that there's been many issues, and I will always go back to, we were dealing with a pandemic, and there are many communities, not just Milwaukee County, but communities across southeastern Wisconsin, across this country, that are still coming back online. But again, it is up to leaders like myself, local leaders, business leaders, to continue to come to the table to tackle many of these issues. And so we're seeing a great trajectory, or upward trajectory, related to some of the things that we're investing in. And again, if it wasn't for this partnership, we would not see the position that Milwaukee County is in today. And I will tell you that when the Republican National Convention come here, they're going to see what we have. We always talk about Midwest nice, but they're going to understand what Milwaukee nice is.
Let me leave you with this. Donald Trump flipped the state of Wisconsin in 2016, basically got 49% of the vote there in 2020. So I hear you on the president, and I understand your personal position on Republicans. But if Trump was that bad, or you don't think can play in that state, how is it that he's at and in the polls today, essentially dead even coin flip with President Biden?
I mean, let's take everything into account. The polls that we're looking at is just a snapshot in time of what is happening today. And here, being on the ground at the grassroots level, we know that people are still struggling. And when we tell the story of what Joe Biden has done, people are starting to perk up their ears a little bit and pay more attention. And so until we have the opportunity to focus on what is happening here locally and really get over the RNC coming to Milwaukee County, that's going to provide even more opportunities for this community. But just like you reported on, Joe Biden won this state by 20,000 votes. That lets us know that we can't take that for granted. And so we have to continue to build partnerships. We not only have a vision to share, but we have a story to tell as Democrats. And so it is up to us to make sure that we're telling that story.
David Crowley, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. Enjoy the weekend in Milwaukee. Have a good one. Thank you, sir. So the Democrats, they were out full force today on this. Does this, how if at all, does this move the needle in the state of Wisconsin?
I mean, Probably not much. But you got to take in the silly season when you're in the campaign season. You can't leave anything untouched, right? So Donald Trump said something stupid, so Democrats are going to have to say, and they're going to try to get some, what I hate to use this term, earned media by
selling merch too.
Right, exactly. You got to try to get it. I'm just happy for Milwaukee that they're getting a convention. They had the Democratic convention last time around, but it was basically unpersoned because of coronavirus.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So this time they get a convention. Milwaukee is an awesome city. I love the city of Milwaukee. And even though it's a Democratic city, they're going to roll out the bratwurst for the Republicans. They're going to make it great. It's going to be fun. I'm for it.
What argument cuts through? What you heard there from Crowley or what you heard there from Trump?
Lead us off.
Well, I mean, the complete irony of Donald Trump to say, the city where we're having our convention, where he will be nominated, is a horrible city. That's peak Donald Trump. But, I mean, the reality of the matter is this is a state that will be won by a coalition of black and brown and working class voters. And Donald Trump is basically taking a dig at them. He's saying, look at this horrible city you live in. We talked about the infrastructure, the investments that have been made over the course of the Biden administration. Those are key to making sure that the city is successful. And so for Donald Trump to say that is kind of ludicrous, but also I'm glad that the Biden campaign is taking advantage of this moment to say, here's another thing that Donald Trump's saying that is both untrue and absolutely, laughable. So I think it's a great moment for them. I think it's great to highlight that Donald Trump, despite saying that he's reaching out to black and brown voters.
In a way, though, there's some Republicans who feel that this was a good thing for them.
Look, if you talk about Wisconsin politics, Milwaukee and the rest of Wisconsin are two wildly different things.
Yep.
Wildly different things. Milwaukee, great city, was there for the first debate. They got a great team over there. It's going to be a lovely convention. But also to the point, look, when Donald Trump went after John McCain and veterans, they thought he'd get crushed in the veteran vote. When he called the White House a dump, they thought they'd see his numbers go down. The fact of the matter is, everyone's catching strays from Donald Trump. He goes after anybody and everybody, and guess what? The numbers, he still maintains that he has this juice. I don't know what it is.
Especially in Milwaukee, where black and brown voters are core to the coalition that is going to be key to whoever wins that state in 2024. You've got Donald Trump basically taking a shot at them, and I don't think that's great. He's someone who's been out there for the last couple of weeks and months saying he's going to court black voters, he's going to court Latino voters, and here we go.
Well, to David Crowley's point, this was a state that was razor thin, and in an election where margins really matter.
Well,
they will not forget it.
TW is right that it will juice the people who love Donald Trump being sort of a pro wrestling villain are going to love it. They're going to, he said it, I love it. But my former Georgetown University colleague is also right in that it's a basket of deplorables kind of thing, that if you are on the fence about whether you're going to vote for Joe Biden or not, and you're a black person or just a Milwaukeeite, a Milwaukeonian, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm sticking up for my town. So it's true, Donald Trump is good at motivating voters, his own and other people's.
But he's losing Milwaukee one way or the other. So does a juice turn out enough in a place that's already going to have high turnout because they hate Donald Trump?
We have 5 months of squeezing out every possible vote from every corner of every precinct of 7 states of this great nation.
All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. The president and the Pope. What did the head of the Catholic Church tell the president today about, along with other world leaders? And is Donald Trump raising the alarm on artificial intelligence? What he said with Logan Paul. So you got the president and the Pope, Trump and Logan Paul. There you go. State of the race. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. An historic meeting between Pope Francis and President Biden at the G7 summit in Italy. According to the White House, the two spoke about, quote, the urgent need for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war and a hostage deal along with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, end quote. Now, the Pope also meeting with world-famous comedians to discuss the importance of humor in today's world. Now, the pontiff also weighing in on AI at the G7 summit, saying it's up to leaders to safeguard the future.
This is the case of artificial intelligence. It's up to each to make good use of it, and it's up to politics to create the conditions whereby this good use is possible and fruitful.
So there you got the Pope and the President talking AI. It seems like this is no matter who you are, is starting to grab the attention.
Absolutely. Viva el Papa. We love the Pope, and I'm glad he's getting involved in this. This is the big issue of our time.
You think he should be involved in this, the Pope?
Well, I think AI goes so far beyond anything we've ever seen before in our lifetimes that there will eventually be a spiritual component to the ramifications it has on the church and on faith denominations all over the world. And that's why I think we need to get ahead of it and work on it. I'm glad to hear the Pope chime in.
Let me ask you this. He did not meet with Mike Pompeo, your old boss.
I remember.
You remember.
Yes.
Because it was too close to the election.
Yes.
This was not a one-on-one G7 summit, but he met with President Biden today in the home stretch. Take any exception?
No, it's completely different. This is a G7 summit. He's meeting with all the world leaders, sure, one-on-one. Mike Pompeo was, I believe, passing through Rome. He is not a head of state and wasn't then. I don't think he took offense to it. I don't take offense to it either.
You know, I think that to his point, the conversation about AI has kind of transcended all facets of our society, the marketplace, politics, and so for such an important person in our culture like the Pope to weigh in on it, right, I think is appropriate, and I think we need to be having a more robust discussion about the impact and the drawbacks.
So there was a story today actually that a congressional hopeful. There was a video that was posted. Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw it
on TikTok, in which they used MLK Jr.'s voice for the congressional, endorsing the congressional hopeful. And he basically said, I knew nothing about it. This was my staffer. But, I mean, you see a world where this is going to continue to happen.
I suppose I should be more alarmed, but I'm not. I'm pretty confident that if we would look at 40 years ago or 50 years ago, what people said we were worried about, we said, oh, this will be the end of us, and this will be the end of us. I mean, this is life on Earth. Nobody gets out alive, and bad stuff happens, and all of that is true. But I'm an optimist. I'm hopeful because I think people are good at figuring things out. I think the Pope said a good thing. He said, which is, this can be good. It can be good. So we should be open to the possibility.
I think I saw like a headline that somebody was trying to put up a AI candidate for Parliament.
Oh, it's happened, and we'll get there in the future for sure. Speaking of, by the way, former President Trump also weighing in on artificial intelligence. It was during an interview with the popular podcast host Logan Paul, the YouTuber, professional wrestler, speaking with, you see it there, the former president. And Donald Trump even talked about a speech that he says he gave, or at least was considering it, that was written by AI. Watch.
I had a speech rewritten by AI out there, one of the top people. He said, oh, you're going to make a speech? Yeah. He goes, click, click, click. And like 15 seconds later, he shows me my speech.
That's
written.
Crazy. That's crazy.
So beautifully, I said, I'm going to use this sucker.
We don't know if he eventually did. Broaden out for a second, though. You've got Trump, Chris, meeting there with Logan Paul. He's done SneakerCon. He's embraced crypto. I know you're going to be talking about older voters here coming up, but it seems like Donald Trump is going in the opposite direction with younger voters.
He is, and he's also going to safe places, right? You go to do an interview. Donald Trump should come here and do an interview with you.
Yes, he should.
Agreed. He should do that.
I haven't interviewed him since July of 2020 and would love to do it again.
So he goes over to the pro wrestlers hawking prime drink to get nuzzled, to get a good thorough nuzzling. Oh, hilarious. Even better than the last time. People, these candidates should go face challenging questions. They should do this stuff and not do interviews with people who hug you at the end. If your interviewer hugs you at the end, you're not really meeting.
But I think it says something that he's going to Logan Paul, and like conversely, Biden went to Howard Stern, right? Like two totally different generations here, Janae.
Yeah, that's a great point. Look at that.
Indeed. I mean, seeing former President Trump seeing this clip is really just such an unserious moment, right? And when you're talking about this unserious moment on top of him saying, well, I believe it is. He is serious. He's a cultural icon. Logan Paul is not. And you have this unserious moment where he's talking about AI writing his speech while he's hugging and showing T-shirts. I mean, it's kind of a laughable moment, and I think when the Pope was talking about this can be used for good, but there are some concerns. I think these are the concerns that he was talking about.
Yeah, no. Watch old clips of Howard Stern. He was not always very serious. Still is a
cultural icon.
But sure, but Logan Paul and Jake Paul,
for a certain generation,
they are icons. Millions upon millions upon millions of kids, voting age, love them. To Chris's point, who's going to be talking about the older generation. The younger generation, Trump's making massive inroads with them. This is a big part of the reason why. But look, to the AI point, there is no brain, human or artificial, that could come up with some of the stuff Trump comes up with, like that battery electrocution versus jumping in with a shark.
I am bullish human. I am pro-human pro-human and pro-creativity to that point in the face of AI. Only so much of this stuff's going to be able to be automated. But it is interesting that he said he used it in a speech, or at least was considering.
Or maybe he was. Some of the top people.
Still to come here from the Hill, excuse me. Age is just a number, but the numbers show that there could very well be some movement with the oldest in this country and where they are politically. So we just talked about Trump and Logan Paul. You're going to break down sort of the other end of the spectrum on the other side of the break numbers that you're seeing with older voters.
Yeah, when Logan Paul is as old as Howard Stern, he'll probably be a Democrat.
Part of Chris's theme here on the Hill. Stay with us. Steyerwalt breaks it down.
Tonight on a special edition of Dan Abrams Live, the political trials taking over America. In his own words, here how Hunter Biden would have testified in his own defense. Plus, former President Trump's options for appeal. Tonight at 9 Eastern, only on NewsNation.
Against inflation, this time from an American breakfast institution, Waffle House, announcing today it is raising both its workers' hourly wages after a series of protests and as a result, prices on the menu. The restaurant chain says the price hikes will be higher in urban areas. All right, Janae, so I saw this story and I said to our team in our show meeting today, I go, how many Waffle Houses are in swing states? And the reason why I wanted to know was because Donald Trump has recently said he's not going to, he would get rid of taxes on tips, right? You know the state of Georgia inside and out. 22% of all Waffle Houses are in the state of Georgia out of the 439 total. And I thought to myself, you know what? In part, we focused on Nevada last week when Trump made these comments, right? But here's another example.
It is indeed, and I'm really elated to hear this news. I think that raising wages for workers is absolutely something that we should be doing. I think that, Democrats have long said that this is something we should be doing, especially for institutions like Waffle House, of which there are so many. When you talk about the impact on kind of a state like Georgia, Waffle Houses employ thousands and thousands of employees. And so this is something that I think that, we should be talking about, that we should celebrate, that we should champion. And I'm really glad that this is happening.
Am I onto something there?
Well, yeah, I have no doubt you will hear Donald Trump chime in on this. Look, when you raise wages $3 for the least paid employee on your roster, you have to raise it for everybody else. Everyone else won't just accept that somebody gets a pay raise on it. So the impact is massive. So obviously you're going to see prices go up. Waffle House, the first one I ever went to was in the state of Georgia.
Love it.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
But anyway, people are going to now find that the affordable meals are a little less affordable, just like their groceries. Donald Trump's going to capitalize that inflation. He's going to lay it at Biden's feet, even though it's probably not a direct line, but you will absolutely be hearing about it.
How does Biden counteract that whole tips argument?
I think it's a tough one to counteract. I think that for a lot of folks, a raise in wages but a tax on tips is not like the end of the world. But right. I do think that, if we can see worker wages going up, I think that's a victory that we should take a victory lap.
If you thought tip culture was getting bad now, just wait until that goes into effect.
All right, meantime, and over to the presidential race and perhaps a surprising area where President Biden may be gaining over Donald Trump. Steyerwalt is here to break it all down. Chris?
Let me just tell you, if you can break up a fight using a mop, police the jukebox, and cook them smothered, covered.
And smoke a cigarette out back.
That's right. And smoke a cigarette out back. You deserve at least $3 more.
Yeah.
Okay. Old people are more Republican. This is one of the truths, one of the iron laws of political demography. See here. Here's Americans 60 and older and their vote for president. This is according to exit polls going way back to 1972. Guess what? Older people are more Republican. And you can see the switch that happens there in the 90s as boomers get older, and there it is, 52 to 47. Why is that so important to Republicans? Because, man, older people love to vote. Older people love to vote. Here is 65 and older voting versus population overall. Look at these percentages. of how much higher voter turnout is among older voters than it is among the population as a whole. And by the way, compared to younger voters, only about 20% of people in their 20s vote. Age 65 and over, you see that number there in 2020, 75%. So having older voters is real good. If you had to choose one demographic group, you'd pick the 60 or 65 and older. What's happening this time? Here's voters 65 and older and their general election preference. We've got two polls here, one from Quinnipiac University, which shows Joe Biden ahead substantially among older voters. And then if you look at the 6 swing states, and this is from the New York Times Siena poll, Biden's up there too. That's interesting. Why? Why is this true? Now, some of this, Biden's made a big case about drugs, about making prescription drugs more affordable. He's made a big case to try to say the Republicans want to take your Social Security away. He's done a lot of this. But I want you to look at this question from the Quinnipiac poll. Voters who